It started like any other day in the quiet, mist-covered hills of Kenmare, Ireland. But by nightfall, a man was missing, and a close-knit farming community would never be the same. Michael Gaine was 56 years old, a lifelong farmer, and a man who loved the land more than anything. He was known for his early mornings, his stubborn work ethic, and his quiet smile. But on March 20th, 2025, Michael vanished. His truck was found near his land. His phone was left behind. And Michael himself? Gone, without a trace. In this episode of Roadside Tales, we explore the strange and troubling disappearance of a man many called the backbone of his rural town. That morning, neighbors saw Michael tending to his cattle as usual. He waved. Nothing seemed wrong. By the afternoon, he'd disappeared. No calls, no texts, no goodbyes. His brother, who helped run the farm, returned from town to find Michael's truck at the gate, engine still warm. But there was no sign of Michael. At first, everyone hoped he'd just gone off for a walk or into town on foot. But as the sun set and no one heard from him, concern turned to fear. The police began searching that evening. Drones, dogs, even farmers on horseback combed the fields and hills, but there was nothing. No dropped hat, no footprints, not a broken twig, just the silence of the countryside. Days passed, then weeks. Local news began covering the story and speculation swirled. Some believed Michael had suffered an accident. Others feared foul play, and some quietly suggested that maybe Michael had chosen to disappear. But then, things got darker. Whispers of a feud began to surface. Michael had reportedly clashed with a nearby landowner over water rights. There were heated words in the weeks before he vanished. Police looked into it, but no arrests were made. A former employee came forward anonymously, saying Michael had been acting paranoid, that he thought someone was watching the farm late at night, that he'd installed a new lock on his barn door. Then came the discovery: blood traces on a shovel buried behind the tool shed. Lab tests confirmed it was human, but the sample was degraded. No full match. Still, it shifted the case. Police began treating the case as a suspected homicide. In May 2025, authorities officially declared the case a criminal investigation. Michael Gaine was now listed as a potential victim of foul play. But there were no suspects, no arrests. Just a small town shaken by the idea that someone among them might be responsible. The case drew national attention in Ireland, and in true crime forums around the world, people began to speculate. Some believed Michael had discovered something he shouldn't have. Others believed it was personal, a grudge, a betrayal. Through it all, Michael's family kept his routine alive. They fed the animals, repaired the fences, mowed the same pastures he once walked. His sister Maureen spoke to the press, saying, "He's not the kind of man to just walk away. Something happened, and we won't stop until we find out what." As weeks turned to months, new leads began to dry up. The police searched surrounding woods, drained a small pond on the property, and even brought in ground-penetrating radar. But still, nothing. Locals began holding weekly gatherings near the town hall, lighting candles and sharing memories. Michael wasn't just a name on a poster, he was someone they knew, someone they trusted. And then came a strange letter. Maureen received an anonymous note in the mail. It read, "You're looking in the wrong place." He didn't leave the land. He was buried in it. It had no return address, no fingerprints. Forensics couldn't determine the sender. But the letter sent shockwaves through the family. Investigators reopened old interviews. They returned to Michael's property and began digging in a remote part of the land, an unused field near the woods. But again, nothing was found. Rumors now turned to an old employee Michael had fired 2 years prior. The man had a criminal record and had once threatened Michael over wages. Police questioned him again, but there was no evidence linking him to the case. Frustration began to boil. The townspeople grew restless, and the family, tired, heartbroken, and clinging to hope, began looking for help elsewhere. They hired a private investigator, a former Dublin detective named Eamon Kelleher. Kelleher's approach was quiet but methodical. He revisited timelines, cross-referenced statements. He even tracked Michael's old cell phone records and financials. And then, a pattern emerged. In the 2 weeks leading up to his disappearance, Michael had withdrawn small amounts of cash from different ATMs, each time in a different nearby town he hadn't told anyone. Why? Was he paying someone off or preparing for something? Kelleher discovered that a local contractor, known to do work for Michael, had also withdrawn similar amounts on the same days from different branches. When questioned, the man claimed it was a coincidence. But Kelleher wasn't convinced. The contractor eventually stopped cooperating. No charges were filed, but the tension was unmistakable. Something was off. In August 2025, a new piece of evidence was found. A trail camera deep in the woods behind Michael's property, placed by a hunter months prior, had captured blurry footage of a man walking with a shovel just before dawn on March 21st, the day after Michael went missing. The footage wasn't clear enough to identify the person, but it added another layer to the mystery. Why was someone walking near the property at that hour, carrying a shovel? Today, the case remains open. Authorities say they are still actively investigating. But for Maureen, and everyone who knew Michael, time has dulled none of the pain. His chair at the dinner table remains empty, his boots still by the door. Michael Gaine was more than a name in a headline. He was a brother, a friend, and a farmer who never stopped working. Someone took him from his land, and someone knows why. If this story moved you, consider subscribing to Roadside Tales. More true stories, more dark turns, always real.